And I think in a time when we often think of Islam as being a violent religion or overly political, the writings of Mr. Gulen are a refreshing breath. On education, Islam is Turkey 3 times, one sponsored by the Hizmet Movement. Of the people, how friendly, how generous, how dedicated to making humanity and to improve humanity, to be of service is amazing. I've read some things that Fethullah Gulen has written. I've studied his life. I was very impressed just with his early education, his memorizing of the Quran, his commentaries that include modern science, modern history, and applying it to Islam and applying it to the global world we live in. It's very appealing. And I think in a time when we often think of Islam as being a violent religion or overly political, the writings of Mr. Gulen are a refreshing breath. His commitment to education, to founding schools all over the world, to promoting Sufism, the poetry of Mevlana Rumi, to relief work. It's the sort of thing the world needs, and it's nice to see it coming from the Middle East, coming from Turkey, which most people don't know anything about. And again, when I'm in class and people want to say something prejudiced about Islam, I can say, I've been to Turkey, I've met Muslims doing all of these wonderful things. Have you? It's a wonderful way of countering a lot of the prejudice that's out there. Hizmet Movement, if I was thinking about it in terms of Islam, it is a 21st century global approach to what's best in Islam. In thinking about the Quran or the Hadith, what I always was impressed with was its emphasis on human rights, on education, on respect for other people and religions. When I think about the early history of Islam and the great civilization and sciences and so on it created, I see all that in the Hizmet Movement, the emphasis on education, on women's rights, on quality education for all. To me, it's the best of Islam. It's Islam at its best. I've traveled to Turkey 3 times, once sponsored by the Hizmet Movement, and the last 2 times I've taken students with me, and we've met with many Hizmet volunteers, businessmen. We've visited schools, hospitals. I think many movements talk a lot and perhaps are even involved in educating people. But I think Hizmet is about doing more than anything else. And that's both needed in the world, and it's refreshing to see that people really care about education, about relief work, about bringing the best forward. And the world needs more of that. I would say here in Oklahoma City especially, that's what people think about when they think about the Turkish Raindrop House or any of the interfaith dialogue activities, that this is what Hizmet is about. Bringing people together, whether it's a friendship dinner, an educational presentation, the whirling dervishes that we just had, people realize that the movement is serious about interfaith activities. And it's something that we need here. I think people sometimes think Oklahoma is just the Bible Belt, but we also have 10, 15 Buddhist temples. We have 6 or 7 masjids. We have Hindu temples. We have people that aren't exposed to a lot of cultures here, and yet they're all around us, and it's something very much needed. And I think if you asked anybody about the Turkish people here, that would be one thing they would immediately recognize, is this bringing people together to talk and to try and improve society. The emphasis on education in Hizmet is wonderful. As an educator, I really value that, but it's not just that it's about education, it's about high quality education. I think in my 3 trips to Turkey, we've probably visited 10, 15 Hizmet schools. I was just overwhelmed with the quality, the excitement of the students, the teachers. In fact, I told several principals, I want to be a student here, even though it would mean going back to elementary school. But it just looked like such fun. It seemed like not only was the quality of the curriculum superior, but it was fun, it was engaging, it was about the arts, about science, about literature. And you could tell the students and the faculty and staff were engaged. It wasn't a job for them. It was something they loved, and you could tell they recognized that this was serving the greater good of improving civilization, improving humanity. For one thing, their charity activities are understated. I occasionally hear about them. I was just so touched to hear that there were Hizmet doctors and nurses in Somalia, that they opened this school in war-torn Sarajevo. We often hear of Hizmet charity work in terms of earthquakes in various parts of the world. And again, it seems like the focus is on the actual aid, not on promoting themselves. And from every indication I get, the money goes directly to help people. It's not just a kind of public relations event. And like everything else I've seen with Hizmet, whether it's the schools, the generosity of the people, I'm sure the relief work is doing amazingly good things around the world. And I wish we could duplicate these activities more, because the world is in need of true relief, activities like Hizmet provides. I'm aware that there are some criticisms about the Hizmet movement, both inside Turkey and outside. Part of the problem with the criticisms is it just lacks, the criticisms are based on ignorance. Part of it, though, is I think Hizmet is trying to avoid both extremes of being too secular on the one hand, being too extreme in religious sense on the other, and therefore you often get attacked from both sides. You're not religious enough, you're too religious, you're too secular. you're too this or that. I think if you're going to make real change in the world, some people wonder about hidden motives. I personally haven't seen any. I think the people I've met are genuinely concerned about the welfare of humanity. I'm sure there are some atheist or secular reporters and others that are suspicious because Hizmet is inspired by Islam and Sufism. Just because religion is involved doesn't mean that there isn't a real, genuine effort to try and help. So I think most of the criticisms I've heard just seem to be about either ignorance or cynicism. I've actually met Hizmet people for the last 10 years. I've been to Turkey, I've been to their schools. And I'm usually quite a skeptic or critic about things, and I don't see anything that I would be critical of. I've been to Turkey 3 times, once sponsored by Hizmet and twice taking students. Of course, Turkey is just such a fascinating country. You've got all the Greco-Roman archaeological sites. You've got early Christian and Byzantine. You have the Ottoman sites. Lovely, beautiful. I think, though, without the Hizmet volunteers and staying overnight in their homes, the trip would simply have been a sightseeing tour. Because of the generosity of Hizmet people, the trip is an encounter with other human beings on the highest, deepest level. So often I remember as we would leave one town to go to the next, we'd all be in tears and we'd be hugging, and there'd be people walking around the bus as we were leaving because we made such powerful friends and powerful connections. We met each other genuinely as human beings, and I think in a world that, again, sometimes identifies Islam with violence or political intrigue, this is more powerful than any message, to bring people together, to let people see that others in the world are concerned, as Americans are, about these problems, that are doing something about it, and that Muslims are human beings. I think so often in the news, that's not the message you get. And so the trips to Turkey are amazing, not just from the history, not just from the beautiful scenery. And I have to say, many of the people we met are close friends in Turkey, and I would go back instantly if I were asked. And it would partly just to be to hug people like Suleiman and Kataya and the other people we met. Such deep friendships were made.
I just think that Mr. Gulen and the Hizmet movement, I just find him to be a remarkable man, and I just find that he is a person that I hold up very highly as someone to emulate, someone to, he would be a good mentor for me.
Hizmet attempts to bring people together who would otherwise not ever come into contact, and give them the opportunities to see one another's humanity.